Hi, this is Marcus Lemonis. You should be watching me on CNBC, but if you're not, you should be listening to the Shark Tank podcast.
Welcome to the Shark Tank podcast. Each week, one of the best entrepreneurs from ABC's network smash hit Shark Tank teaches you how to swim with the sharks without being eaten alive. And now your host, serial entrepreneur, TJ Hale.
I want you to take a very deep breath and release. Kevin O'Leary, ladies and gentlemen, is coming in the Shark Tank podcast today. Big day for me. Big day for you. Thank you for joining me for this conversation. Just you, me, and a big, great white shark. Before I bring Kevin out, I just want to thank you for being here today. And I want to talk a little bit about the entrepreneur journey. You know, you're an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. Every now and then you look back over your shoulder and go, wow, look at all that stuff in my wake. Did I really do all this? You know, whether it's a year, whether it's 5 years, whether your business is $100 million and 10X, or whether you're still kind of grinding it out, waiting for that big score. You know, it's an amazing thing to be an entrepreneur. I look at my podcast, and when I started, I just wanted to extend the conversation I was having as a fan. I felt like, you know, you hear people all the time say, oh, I learned so much from Shark Tank. Well, I would watch the show and go, actually, I just have a lot of questions. I want to know so much more than they tell me in this 8 minutes. And so I was given a presentation at the Make 48 conference in Kansas City recently, which was fantastic. And I started writing down the list of things that I subconsciously wanted to know. And the list started to get really, really long. So I talked about this during the conference, but I'll just throw a couple at you. You know, does the deal go through afterwards? Why or why not? What the entrepreneur actually gets in exchange for their equity. What's the first thing the shark does when they jump in and fix the business? You know, the whole reason Marcus Lemonis has the profit. Watch him get in there and start cleaning this business up. What are those things? What key parts of the negotiation are left out? Why is a specific deal or shark chosen over another one in the mind of the entrepreneur? You know, what would they do different if they could take a mulligan? What are they doing that's working on social media, marketing, analytics, accounting? How do they get into big box retail? You know, what advice do they have to get funding, sourcing, manufacturing? What's something they learned that they weren't ready for in their preparation process? There's so much stuff that I get to share on this podcast that we don't learn on Shark Tank. And I think you as a listener understand that there is value in that. And that's why this platform has grown so big. But the main thing I want to touch on is that being persistent in providing this has given me opportunities that I wouldn't have expected when I started. I mean, it's just an online radio show. But here I am talking to Kevin O'Leary, my surrogate father, on the podcast. And I think the real takeaway is that you can't always predict where you're going when you start something like this. When you start something stupid, as Richie Norton will say, which is a podcast episode that I'm releasing soon. He wrote a book called Start Something Stupid, which was phenomenal. But I do think that there's nothing that takes the place of persistence. So I typically ask all my entrepreneurs for their favorite quote when they come in. Today, I'm going to give you mine. Nothing in this world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. Calvin Coolidge. Some of you have persistently emailed me with things that you would like me to add to my platform. Some of you had asked me to do YouTube reviews of each show, which I think would be a lot of fun. Almost everyone who emails me asks for more podcasts, more interviews, more of what they're getting from here. And I've also got other things on my list that I've had for a long time. I finally found a way to bring those things to you. It's called patreon.com, www.patreon, which is patreon.com/Shark Tank. Go there right now. You can sign up to be a patron of the show. And if you do that, you'll be in a special group where essentially you can not only get those things, but you can participate. If you want to do YouTube reviews with me, that's fine. I just have to make it to my next milestone. You can support the show for as little as $1 a month. Of course, the amounts go up, but if I hit certain milestones, we're going to do things with the platform that not only will blow your mind, but that you'll be able to participate in actively. And I'm really excited about it. Patreon.com/Shark Tank. I also encourage you to go to the show notes for this episode at sharktankpodcast.net Mr. Wonderful. There are links where you can share it with everybody that you know. And more importantly, I'm going to post some YouTube clips and some outside links to some information that I really, really think is great about Mr. Wonderful, some of the work he does with young entrepreneurs, and also some of the other topics I would have liked to ask him about, but there just wasn't time because I pelted him with questions during the entire wonderful hour that he gave me. And also, I didn't know how big of a deal this O'Leary Fine Wine launch was on QVC. So I'm sure he had a long weekend, long hours of adult beverage consumption, and still got up early to have this discussion with me. So he's a great sport. Whether you're a fan of Mr. Wonderful or not, you will be after this interview. Enjoy.
Silence, please. I'm making an offer.
Welcome, everybody, to Shark Tank Podcast. I'm here with a very special guest. As you know, I'm an entrepreneur first and a Shark Tank fan second, but it's hard not to be giddy when you get a visit from this man. He's been referred to as the Undertaker. He is the Merchant of Truth. He's the only shark who tells the truth all of the time, and he puts the perp in perpetuity. My surrogate father, Mr. Wonderful. Sir, do I have your permission to start the madness?
Absolutely, please.
Congratulations on your recent huge score in QVC. I was teasing you in the pregame about whether or not you got the Lori Garnier discount when you went in there, because I hear everybody reverences her. What, have she officially been displaced as the leader in the QVC business?
Yes, it's massive shockwaves through the monarchy. You know, the rules are very strict. Lori's had a great run, and I congratulate her for that, but it's over. The new king of QVC has been anointed, Mr. Wonderful. Now, for Lori, that makes some changes that are going to be difficult for her. Number one, she'll always have to walk 2.5 feet behind me. Whenever I enter the room, she's going to have to curtsy, and she can't speak to me unless I ask her to, which could be very useful in the Shark Tank. But I'm a really benevolent king, and I'm going to give her a 50% off retail, so she can only have to walk 1 foot behind me. So that's great.
How is she warming to that? Is she, does it take much practice, or is she getting it pretty quick?
You know, it was all over the Twitter sphere yesterday and Instagram as well. This is tragedy in some ways, but, you know, I want to be kind about it. These things happen. In monarchies, changes are violent. We've seen that throughout history, and we've seen it again at QVC yesterday.
That was my next question, actually. Do they take her picture off the wall? Do they burn her office down, or do they kind of just let her quietly go about her business while, you know?
She has to compete now. She has to sell out too in 7 minutes. Let's see that happen. It's been a while since that's occurred. I'm very proud of that new high bar she's got to reach, so I'm waiting for her to see her do it. We sold O'Leary Fine Wines, all of it, in 7 minutes. We didn't even have a chance to sip it before it was sold out. Very proud, and of course, I'm very thankful to the fans who have bought it because they're going to love it. I make this wine myself. I think it's the best value of Cab and Sauvignon you can get right now.
Anyone who follows you know that you're a wine enthusiast, a connoisseur. They love the Testavan. I see that you wear it occasionally now when you're out and about. Hopefully I said that right. I might have butchered that. But why did it take so long for you to enter the market in the way that you did? Were you waiting for the right time? Did you want to I don't even want to speculate. Tell us about that.
Well, I'll explain. What most celebrities do with wines is they just slap their name on an already existing vintage and think that people are going to buy it just based on their name. Wine enthusiasts and people who drink wine aren't stupid. They want quality. And so for me, I had to start from scratch. I had to go find vineyards that could give me their capacity in both Chardonnay and Cabernet. And so then I had to blend the wine myself. That took 2 years. Because if I'm going to put my name on something, it has to be something I've made that I would drink myself and I would serve to my family and friends. And that's what I've achieved with O'Leary. I mean, I brought 3 different wines to the table at QVC yesterday. It was a worldwide launch there. We did it on David Venerable's show, which is the #1 show on QVC. It's Cooking with David, and it's a huge show in America at 12 noon on Sundays. And so what I offered was this incredible Chardonnay that is, you know, instead of being heavy oak, I brought forward the fruits of both pear and green apple. You can taste it with a beautiful vanilla finish. David loved it, sold out in seconds. And then a really interesting Cabernet Sauvignon, which was very cassis and blackberry flavors in it with a really spicy ending. That took me a long time to blend. And of course, you know, it's its second year in the barrel and it's just been bottled and it's spectacular. But the real piece de resistance was my family reserve. I blended together a Zinfandel, a Merlot, and a Shiraz, and it was spectacular. And that's only available at QVC.com. I made it just for them. That sold out in minutes. And so I was really happy with that outcome. And yeah, it took a long time, but wine's a labor of love. You got to work on it. You can't just slam your name on some crap and sell it. This stuff is really good.
Is there any consternation when you have your life's work going into what ends up being 7 minutes, of TV bliss? Why don't they say, you know what, Kevin, dollars per minute, we expect you to blow it out. Let's have you on for a 35-minute QVC special and sell 10 years worth of wine. I mean, is it over too fast?
No, the thing about QVC is you've got to understand where it fits in the pecking order. When you're launching a new brand and you have no distribution at all, O'Leary Wines began life yesterday. You can't buy it at any retailer. So what you want to do is prove out the brand and the demand at that price point. And the only way you can do that on a national basis is with something like a QVC. So you put it on the air, millions of people see it. If it's successful, it immediately sells out. And that proves something to the market, your price and your brand. Then you take that data to retail and say, look, this is what happened when it went on QVC. And then you can start to talk to national retailers, national grocers, national wine store distributors. And that's how you build it out. It's a long, hard process, and you only do it if you love your wine. This is a brand, I think, O'Leary Wines is going to be a $50 million a year brand in the next 36 months. That's my goal.
Wow.
I think I'm going to get there. And it all stems from Shark Tank, because not only do I want to make it successful in 750 mil, but I want to make and be the champion of the single serve format where you can buy 5.5 ounces in a single serve of my wines in stadiums, at rock concerts, in venues and parks and all that stuff. That's sort of my vision for that business. And yeah, I've spent a lot of money doing it, a lot of time, but that's the nature of being an entrepreneur. You know that. You've got to build it. You have to make it happen. It takes time.
Well, there's another piece of that, and that's the fact that you kind of put Linda in charge of the whole business, right? Is that to make sure that it's successful?
Well, she has a remarkable palate. She can distinguish between any wine varietal, New World, Old World. She's almost a sommelier. She's been studying for years, and she actually and I blended these wines together. Her palate on particularly whites, on Chardonnays, is remarkable. She can tell right down to minerality what we're doing. So she was very instrumental in doing this. She launched the wine, and she's been working with it on me for 2 years. This has been a tremendous amount of work. We haven't made a dime yet, and we won't for another couple of years. But when we get it up to we'll start being profitable at $10 million run rate, which I think we can do within the next 12 months.
So no profit over 2 years. I think you're getting one thing I really love about you and your book. You talk about the 36-month rule. So if you came into Shark Tank today, what would be the harshest critique levied at you by, another bizarro Mr. Wonderful?
Well, I really put that rule in place for myself and everybody else. If you haven't made any money in 36 months, 3 years, you take it behind the barn and you shoot it. It's that simple. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. As an entrepreneur, you have to make endeavors that are eventually going to be profitable. 3 years is enough. Things move so quickly in today's market and all the competition that we have, not just domestically but globally. You really have enough time. It's a bellwether. If you're not making money after 3 years, it's not a business, it's a hobby, and you got to take it behind the barn and shoot it. I can't say that enough times.
I want to talk about something that happened recently on Shark Tank. It's always fun for me to talk to fans of the show. I joked about you being my surrogate father. I joke on the show sometimes about waiting for the DNA test because I love the fact that people get the truth. And I will say this. Oftentimes, I've interviewed over 100 sharks from the show, and when I ask what surprised you the most about your time in the tank, the highest percentage answer has been my experience and interaction with Kevin O'Leary. So when I have an interaction with someone who's not maybe they're a fair weather fan or they catch Shark Tank as often as they are able to, but they're not a rabid, loyal part of the fan base. They say, man, that Kevin guy, he's a jerk, or he's a word that rhymes with Rick, or that's always the kind of visceral reaction. And I don't know if you enjoy that or not, but I enjoy saying, you know what, it's hilarious because that's not what the people who know him on the show would say. So I want to know if during this Scully episode, the scholarship app with the young man who they dug into right away, he did something I thought was interesting. He came on and kind of levied like a soft insult or a joke at you. And it reminded me of the movie Beautiful Mind. Did you see that about the economist, the Nobel Prize winning economist?
Yes. Yeah.
If you remember the example they drew up from game theory where you're kind of like the hot blonde. And if he disses you and gets you out of the picture, he's got a better shot of currying favor with the brunettes and the redheads. Do you ever see yourself kind of that way as the hot blonde on the show?
I look at every deal as a brand new event, a unique event with its own attributes that's completely different than the one that preceded it or the one that's going to come after it. And so, I look at it as a binary. It starts at zero, and then I determine whether there's interest. I thought that was a very interesting deal. And again, I was struggling with the valuation. And My concern also, was customer acquisition costs long term, and then the curation of the data. These were all going through my mind. I don't really care about the banter and all the stuff in between, because I'm trying to determine in the first few minutes, is this a business I want to own? And if it is, what's my strategy to get it? Do I go in alone? Do I bid it up against another shark? Do I collude with another one to keep the price lower? Those were all the things going through my mind. But as the questioning went on, and that's why there's due diligence, the concern I had about the deal, even though he was trying to do that tactic as you suggested, it's irrelevant to me. I'm not trying to make friends in the Shark Tank. I'm trying to make money. I don't care. And I always speak the truth, because in business there's only binary black and white. You either make money or lose it. But what really turned me off in the end about that deal, and why I sort of moved away from it, was I came to the realization that the cost of curating all of the data in the market on all of the scholarships would just keep getting more and more expensive, because that's really where the added value is. If you could, put in your criteria and see the 16 scholarships that are applicable to you, that's because the data was so curated. But I love the guy. I thought it was so interesting. That's what's so great about the Shark Tank. Who would have even thought somebody had done that app? And here he is sitting in front of you. That's why I love Shark Tank. It's amazing.
And that's I've got some listener questions I want to ask later, but one of them is definitely regarding scaling. I looked at that and I thought the same thing. Here's a guy where if his user base goes from 1,000 to 2,000 to whatever it is, to where 80 or 90,000 people download this app and 15% of them are using it, at what point do we run out of scholarships? You see that as an obstacle?
No, I didn't see that. That wasn't what was worrying me. Because I think some percentage don't even go through the work. I was worried that if you scaled, the quality of the content would really, stop you from growing materially. It wasn't that you were going to run out of scholarship, because there's a reboot of those dollars every year, and it probably increases by 5 or 6%. I don't think you would get up to a place where you'd run out of money for years, and by that time maybe you'd have a really great database of content of users you could sell other stuff to, like how to pass your exams and all kinds of other stuff, because you're capturing people that are in the educational system. I just felt that if you put another 10,000 people onto it, they'd be very disappointed in the content. That was my worry.
Now, usually during my shows, I throw in audio drops, and the more obnoxious or funny, the better. So I've got a couple here, and I probably could have filled up a whole show with the cuts I've got over the last year and a half. But I got to play a couple of these, because I'm always curious. I'm like, does Kevin go home and watch the show and just make himself laugh out loud with lines like this?
This is all crap.
It's
Money
not.
and tears don't mix. Get over it. Life's hard. Money doesn't care. Your tears don't add any value.
I've heard that one before, but it's sort of true, right? I mean, life is hard, then you die, and certainly money has no soul. It doesn't cry for you.
Your tears don't add any value. I could see them putting that in your headstone. I thought that was hilarious. Oh,
No, but I mean, I actually think coming on Shark Tank and crying is a really poor tactic. If you think the Shark Tank is bad, wait till you get out in the real world. Are you going to sit around crying all day long as you face the challenges of business? Well, I mean, that's really weak.
You could argue
to me, it's weakness.
You could say there's empirical data that if you want Barbara in your deal, it's not such a bad tactic, right?
Listen, the only reason Barbara makes it to Shark Tank is I bought her a new broom this year.
How much did that set you back? I mean, it wasn't a normal broom, right?
It's expensive, but I want her to be on time so she doesn't waste mine.
I'd be interested in buying into your business.
Just because she's crying?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Speaking of crying.
You're on a wonderful journey.
Really? Journey to where? I can't join you on the wonderful journey. I really can't, because I think it ends in tragedy with grown men weeping. Me.
I know I can be like Kevin sometimes, where I think I know everything about everything.
But you don't. You're not like me.
One of my all-time favorites. Is there ever a time when you and Robert, since you've been working together so long, like if you ever got into a roll around on the floor fist fight with him, what would it be over? Would it be something serious or something really stupid?
We don't agree on certain things, but we respect each other. I could probably say that about every shark, but some of the stuff the emotional stuff that Robert gets into and makes decisions on, I'm abhorred by it. I think you have to take emotion out of business. There's just no room for it. It really clouds your decision-making process, and in the long run, you need to be calculated about where you put capital in harm's way, how you risk it. That matters.
He's been on Dancing with the Stars and getting a lot of attention for that. I did notice that you and Lori stopped by to support him, and I thought, I wonder if they're going to do that thing where they go, hey, we've got two very special people in the audience, and then like, hot starts and you and her do a salsa dance together. Did they approach you with that idea to do a special guest number?
Yeah, they approached you with that, but dancing's not on brand for me, and I only went there to go back in the ambulance with Robert to the hospital after he finished dancing. That's what I was planning on doing, to give him some moral support, No, he's done a fantastic job. The guy's lost about 25 pounds on this thing. I think it's an incredible format, and obviously he's gone through a really remarkable journey on it, but make no mistake about it, the guy dances 8 hours a day all week long to make it for that Monday night. It's tough.
Yeah, I think I heard Adam Carolla say there comes a point when you start doing two numbers and there's like 6 hours plus of dancing a day where you go, you know what? I think I'm done with this. I think I'm okay being in the bottom two next week.
Well, let's see how far he goes. He's lasted a lot longer than people thought. He's really hung in there.
Tell you what. I want to go back to historically. I really enjoyed looking at Rags to Riches and reading the book and learning about your roots. I think, when you mentioned you're a hard rock guy, I've always got this thing where if someone gets in trouble, if they're on the news for doing something horrible, like I don't want to hear about circumstances and, the root causes. I want to talk about his parenting and his background and the things that he values and his character. So I really enjoyed reading about your mother and your father and your stepfather. I was hoping you could give people a little bit, 2 or 3 minute background on your upbringing in Canada. And, George talked about you putting down the guitar and not messing around and really getting serious about things that you're good at. And I think that seemed like a pivotal moment in your life because I don't want to say you were drifting, but I get the impression that you weren't real clear on what your life's purpose was. And then things started to change. Can you kind of complete the story for us? Paint the picture?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I actually, when George came into my life, my stepfather, I was born in Montreal, Canada, but I didn't stay in Canada very long because we started a journey of his job working for the United Nations, and we moved to new countries every 2 years. So Cyprus, Ethiopia, Tunisia, Switzerland, France, Cambodia. These are places I grew up in. And, Nicosia, Cyprus was an influential place for me. And all of this sort of molded me as a young guy. And there's a lot of aspirations, young people want to do. I wanted to be a photographer. I wanted to play in a rock band, all the stuff teens want. And he was very pragmatic and explained to me, how the world works, that at some point I have to make a living and I better find some talent that I'm better at than other people or I'm going to be in trouble because I wasn't that good a photographer. At least he didn't think so. And he pushed me to go to, finish college and then move on and to do an MBA. And I guess there was some merit in that because the discipline of doing that gave me some tools that I needed later to figure out what was going to happen. And I think somewhere along the line, I've determined I wanted to be an entrepreneur because I had a bad experience working in an ice cream shop once where I got fired. And I realized as a young teen that if you don't run the show, if you don't own the ice cream shop, you're destined to scrape the gum off the floor. And it's better to be an entrepreneur owner than it is to be an employee. And that was, a life-changing event for me. And I never worked for anybody again. And I've had my ups and downs, but luckily more ups than downs. And these days, I'm trying to, get other young entrepreneurs to understand from that experience that, the whole idea of being an entrepreneur is not about greed of money. It's about pursuit of personal freedom. It's a wonderful thing when you get to a place in your life when you can do anything you want. And, anything. You don't have to answer the phone if you don't want. If you'd like to be, charitable, you can do it. If you want to pursue other interests, you can. If you want to start new businesses, which is what I like to do. I love starting businesses and working with young entrepreneurs. It keeps me going. And so that's very noble, and I try and teach that now. But everybody has a different journey. Mine is different than someone else's, but you learn from your mistakes is the theme, and you pursue things that are profitable. And one day you wake up and you say, wow, how'd that happen? I'm rich. I never noticed it till, it just happened. And I ask other entrepreneurs, they say the same thing. They're so impassioned with what they're doing, they don't notice that they wake up worth $50 million.
Yeah, I think there was a quote where George said that you would have been happy playing music and taking pictures like a lot of other poor people that he knew at the time. And I thought it kind of ties in with the 36-month rule, right? Like at some point you focus on the one thing that you're very good at and you become very successful doing it and you try to keep the distractions out. Is it that simple?
Well, I will say this now, having gone through that journey. I've been rich and I've been poor. Rich is better.
You mentioned Cambodia, Cyprus. Cyprus did something, we're probably not going to get too political today, but I know from watching clips of O'Leary and Lang, I would have enjoyed that show a lot if they had it here in the States. Cyprus woke up one day and they took everyone's money away from them. And when I get on YouTube and I see some of the comments on, in fact, let me just ask you this. Do you ever get on YouTube channels that feature you and just read some of the comments and cry and get depressed?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I have a whole team that does social media now, and we monitor all this stuff. I mean, it's a remarkable power force. You know, yesterday's sale of $500,000 of wine in 7 minutes has everything to do with social media.
Jeez.
And, you know, the fact that people know through social media how much I care about wine. So there's a connection with that brand. But I understand how the platform works. What happened in Cyprus is a form of capital controls that I think by the time the Greek thing is over is going to happen to the Greeks too. I mean, there comes a point where your leverage is gone. You don't have any negotiating power. And one of the challenges Cyprus had is a lot of Russian money went into their accounts. And the EU wanted to get it back, and they just sequestered. They took 33% of it, and along the way took a lot of Cypriots' capital with them. And it was a shocker to see that happen. But it just shows you how much volatility is in our financial systems today, and how much we should cherish what we have in America in terms of having stability. Even though there's volatility, we have stability as our laws. You're not going to see the American government take money out of our accounts to the extent they do it in taxes, but they don't just sequester our capital out of our accounts. That's not American.
They don't, but I mean, there are people talking about it, and then at the high levels where they actually make those decisions. But then you get on the comment boards and you see, and maybe it's because it's YouTube or because it's Twitter, but you see people who, first of all, hate you and don't understand anything that you say. And second of all, think that being as wealthy as you are is inherently the result of something you did, you know, some negative sum or zero sum game, or that you're an evil person, or that because you value the things that result in you having the money, that, you know, that you should be punished and you should have your money taken away and given to someone who hasn't.
No, I get that theme, but I mean, whether you like me or you don't, the facts are these. I've paid millions of dollars in taxes. I've created thousands of jobs for people. You know, I've created products and services over the decades that have become very valuable to families to educate their children in math and reading, for example, or any of the businesses I've started. I speak categorically. Entrepreneurs like me are essential in our system. We have to have them. And if the outcome is that some portion, when you provide a great service for the rest of mankind, one of the benefits in capitalism is you get financial freedom. So your rise to the 1% is because you did something very right for everybody else. And those people that have a hard time with it, you know, I look at it, we're in a free society. Everybody can say or think what they like. I don't spend much time worrying about that. And you know, I understand that I'm controversial to some people and they're not going to react well to it. I couldn't care less. I have to be honest with you. It wouldn't change me in any way at all. I know what I'm doing is right. I follow capitalism. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm basically, you know, in my view of the world, I'm bathed in white light. That's the way I look at it. And every entrepreneur has that white light on them because it is so noble to do this work. To take the risk we take to put capital in harm's way and create jobs is the only way wealth is created in our society. Not a dime comes from the government. Everything we have in our society comes off the back of an entrepreneur creating wealth in the private sector. They are walking to the sun. And that's the way I look at it. They are absolutely righteous in everything they do, and all the rest is noise and irrelevant.
Amen, brother. All right. Well, I got a question. Sometimes when you're on TV, there was at least one instance where you referred to someone as a nut bar. But the thing is, I've heard you attach different modifiers and scores to that. I've heard nut bar factor 6. I've heard nut bar factor 10. When are we going to see Kevin's scale of nut bar factor? When is that going to, the matrix, the nut bar matrix, where is it?
Well, you know, I should focus on that a little bit. Sometimes I have to decide if they're actually serious or not. But, you know, I will say this, sometimes the craziest or seemingly out of sync people have some of the most interesting ideas. So I don't mean to be detrimental when I say nut bar factor 6. What I'm saying is you're way out there. And so you probably have an inordinate amount of risk around your idea, because it's one thing to be a nut bar factor 6, and it's another to execute on the business plan. So if someone's going to come into the tank with something crazy, like, you know, I think in nut bar factor 10 was the guy that was extracting gold out of seawater.
Right.
You should come in with a scientific team, or, you know, a bunch of people that can say from an engineering basis they can execute the plan and you know, have a proven model and how much capital they're going to need. maybe the Nut Bar Factor 10 guy came up with the idea, but he needs a really strong team to execute it. That's the lesson in Shark Tank. And you got to remember, as we go into season 7, we probably are past 100,000 applications for this year. And the producers have to find, and the reason that's occurred is everybody now knows if you can get your product on Shark Tank, sales are going up 10,000% in a weekend. And so I'm looking forward to this season like no other. We're going to have amazing products and services. It's going to be really remarkable.
Yeah.
So looking forward to it in a big way.
You know, I know that this year they've kind of gotten big on the GD, the Gold Diggers. Mark obviously has taken some opportunities to call people out for coming on for what we call in reality TV show the wrong reasons, right? To steal a line from Bachelor. You're here for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, we're going to get some of that, but I think that the producers are getting smarter at weeding it out, and frankly, you're not going to get a deal from one of us, and you've wasted your opportunity. And if we really know it's a gold digger, you're never going to air anyways. So I think doing that strategy and trying to switch and bait is a very bad idea. The real way to make Shark Tank work for you is to get a deal with a shark and then ride the wave. And there's so many deals like, Groove Book, for example, within 11 months went from zero to $14.5 million cash.
It's fascinating.
When Shutterfly bought it. That's a classic Shark Tank situation. Wicked Good Cupcakes is on a run rate for $5 million this year. These are companies that got deals with me. And so they stay on television. They become part of the Shark Tank, Team O'Leary universe of companies that I own, and we make sure we promote them, maintain them. They stay on TV, not just on Shark Tank, but on all kinds of other shows where I feature them. And I think that's way better than just your 8 minutes of airtime once and then you go on to it into oblivion.
I think people are seeing that. I mean, the other day, you guys, maybe it was this last Friday, that Barbara and Lori got into which team was better, Team Barbara or Team Lori. I don't see you engaging a lot of that. I don't see you doing the 30-second shot clock. And I think until Wicked Good Cupcakes, I didn't really see a huge groundswell of got to get on Team Kevin because we understand how much value he brings. It's always about, Lori and the girl power and Barbara, and you'll be part of the, my organization. We'll go to the cabin in Park City. So I think I want to talk a little bit about your businesses and the vibes around Team Wonderful and what it's like being a part of that team.
Yeah, well, what's happened, I find remarkable. If you look at my portfolio, I've got a lot of women CEOs that have actually made me a lot of money. In fact, right now, more than half of my deals are run by women. Companies like Honey Fund, which hasn't got a lot of play but is about to. A really interesting business model where you go online to buy gifts for people's honeymoons, growing like a weed, run by a really strong woman, and spending off a lot of cash. Wicked Good Cupcakes, run by 2 women, has been an absolute monster for me. And if you ask them how's it been like on Team Wonderful, you're going to get a lot of happy comments. But we just finished shooting a 14-minute special for ABC 2020 last Friday in New York about the journey of these women, and their product was used to test sales on the streets of New York. Very interesting shoot that'll be coming out in May. And I go down and look at Groove Book. Really, that was the genesis of that business was a housewife, and so I think what's happened is most of the big exits on Shark Tank. No one's ever had an exit bigger than Groove Book, $14 million. No one's had a return like Wicked Good Cupcakes. Are all Team O'Leary deals. So not to blow my own horn, every shark has winners in their portfolio, but mine happen to be a lot of winners run by women. And so I'm finding a lot of deals coming to me from, the word gets out in the community. I've just started working with Ariana Huffington on a new piece in the Huffington Post that's posted daily called From the Desk of Mr. Wonderful, and we're tracking all of my deals on there. You can just go online and see it. And I'm sort of going through even Bottle Breacher, Jen the wife. That's an incredible deal. I mean, these guys made beer bottles out of shell casings. They got on Shark Tank. That thing has exploded. We sold $2 million worth of product in 90 days. Wow. And Jen is basically running the back office of that business, doing all the logistics, et cetera. So her story's getting out there as part of the Team Wonderful thing, and we're just getting a lot more momentum as a result of the successes we've had. But it's not just unique to me. Every shark has that. We're in year 6. Everybody's got winners. Everybody's got losers. But you're right about one thing. There's a community of people that start talking to each other about the attributes of each shark. What do I bring to the table? What does Robert bring to the table? What does Cuban bring? Everybody's got a different focus. I'm really, really good at promoting women entrepreneurs, and they know it.
Bottle Breacher is one I just recently connected with, and I'm blown away by how well they've done. Because it's one of those ideas when I first saw it, when you have your initial reaction, prima facie, to the business that comes out, I thought, Bottle Breacher, kind of a cool idea. Don't see the long-term potential, and they've just completely blown the barn door off. It's been fantastic.
You're right. When I saw them walk in, I loved the story of his service and everything, but I thought the product was a piece of shit until he put it in my hand, and I thought, wow, is this thing ever cool? I mean, I want one of these. And then I realized if I want one, everybody's going to want one. And that's when I immediately decided I was going to invest. And since then, we've been designing new products. We're about to launch a new wine opener made out of a bullet, which I'm going to be bundling with O'Leary Wines. So there's a lot of synergy between our businesses. We work very hard on putting these things together. And I think at the end of the day, come up with some pretty interesting metrics on how we can help each other. That's the other thing about a shark. As you get multiple companies in your portfolio, certain things you can do at a lower cost. Our social media is now across all of our companies. Everything we do in cooperative marketing at retail, we do together. We cut our costs. So, I have a team run by a guy named Alex Hengy of O'Leary Ventures. They all fall under that team. We give them media support, television support, print support, and, of course, use our buying power to reduce input costs whenever we can.
You've talked about Group Book. I've heard you talk about your exit with Talbot Teas. Wicked Good Cupcakes. Obviously, I love Tracy. She's a huge advocate of yours. Always has great things to say. I'm a big fan of Ruck Pack. I think it's a fantastic product, and I'm scared to death of Rob. He's a beast. He's like an incredible Hulk. Yeah,
we have a whole new rollout of products coming out of Ruck Pack, and Plated is another deal I did after the fact. When Cuban didn't close with them, I closed with Plated, and that thing is really doing well. It's competing with Blue Apron, and I think you're going to start to see, for example, I think Plated should be on QVC. I can make that happen now. Now that I'm the king of QVC, it's wonderful.
I feel so
I'm going to have so much fun with this King of QVC thing. It's going to drive Lori crazy.
I can already see it because you kind of just took a time out and daydreamed during these QVC discussions. And Mark would roll his eyes about how annoying it is that Lori is always playing that card. And there's just no Kevin at all during that chat. So is that what's
No, but
different
now
about
it's all going to be
season 7?
different. When she goes into her shtick about QVC, I'm going to say, excuse me, Lori, let the king speak. That's what's going to happen. And it's going to drive her just crazy. I can't wait.
I wanted to talk about season 7 since we're kind of timing this interview at the end of season 6. We've also got to touch on Beyond the Tank. But you find that a lot of reality TV shows, they start messing with a successful formula and it gets gimmicky and they become a victim of their own rating success. How are we going to make sure that doesn't happen to Shark Tank?
You're very intuitive. That's exactly my concern. That's exactly what I said to the producers when they came to me with it. I said exactly those words. Don't burn this out. It's so successful. Why are you messing with it? And I had the same exact concerns, and I was a holdout to the very end. I didn't sign up for it. I was the last shark to do it because I had those concerns myself. Now, having said that, I have seen some previews of where they took, because I think when they started that production, they didn't know where they were going because they were doing field shoots, documentary style, no idea what was going to happen as they went out there, and they just started shooting. Now, Leslie Garvin, who was involved with us as a producer in season 1, has come back to run that show, and she works with Clay Newbill. So those two have had a long history together. I have a lot of faith in her because I saw her work early on, and that's very much part of when a new show comes together is who's doing it, who's producing it. She has an intuitive feel for what's needed, and a lot of the concern from the networks, both Sony, ABC, Mark Burnett, were really putting the pressure on her. And I thought, where are you going to take this thing? Because how are you going to produce an hour? And her attitude was the most interesting part of every Shark Tank, and you can see it from the numbers, is people want to know what happened to these companies. Now we're going to tell them. And so I've been working on it now for 3 months, and I, for the first time, saw a rough cut of one of them last week, just rough. I was mesmerized. I got to tell you, it was... And I was there. I was there. But I saw they shot a lot of stuff around that I wasn't part of, and they put it together. And if you love Shark Tank, you're going to love this more because it's not just good times. It's not just, yay, everybody's successful. This is about how hard it is to run a business, how grueling it is, how the people are just worn down to the bone and have gone through so much stress and you see it all. This is the underbelly of success. This is how hard it is. This will be very sobering for people who think that being an entrepreneur is easy. I think the show is going to be a monster hit.
You talked about tooting your own horn earlier. I want to do a little bit. I get reviews from people who say, you know what, I love Shark Tank, but I like the podcast more for that exact reason that you mentioned. Because when I would watch the show, as much as I believe what you said about it being about people attaining freedom, I mean, they're obsessed. Young women watch it, families watch it, and you've said before that it's because it shows them that regular people, a lot of times who have no idea what they're doing, are toying with or walking the line of being economically free. And that's so appealing, viscerally. But what we don't learn is how they do it. And so that's the only reason I started this show. And it's been an amazing experience to talk to all of them and to get to share those stories. So I feel like Beyond the Tank was never in doubt. It was always going to come, because that's what people really want.
Yeah, but I think the amount of work it took, and every shark will attest to this, I can guarantee you, because we had no idea what we were in for when we started. It is grueling work. It's on multiple locations. I've probably been to 15 cities, every month in the last 3 months. And it takes a lot longer. It's all field shoots. It's chaotic. You don't know what's going to happen. The outcomes of every shoot are unknown. It's not like it's in a studio. And so putting it all together in the edit suite must be a remarkable challenge. It's exhausting. But as I say, if you're fascinated by the real underbelly of Shark Tank, this is it. And I understand why the vision was to create it, and now I really endorse it. I think it's going to become I think it'll become as popular as Shark Tank itself, because you're going to see the good, the bad, and the ugly.
I'm pleased to hear that, because I think the problem you have is Shark Tank has set the bar so high that now loyal fans of the show are going to, they're not going to want to be disappointed. So it's refreshing to know that you endorse it and you're happy with it.
Yeah, but you're also going to see you're going to see the real personalities of sharks in a way you haven't. I mean, when you're in the Shark Tank, it's a set format. Now you're seeing them in the real world, and there may be a few surprises.
Well, we talked about Team Wonderful. I have to ask you this, because I had Marcus Lemonis on the show, and I asked him this question, so I got to pose it to you as well. If we had if we lived in this dystopian, not so far away future, and there was a Lebanese billionaire Hunger Games, and it was just you and Marcus left, who's getting out of there alive?
Marcus would be dead before he started.
Go on.
I'd make sure. A horrible accident would happen to him. I'm just kidding.
Oh, take him out in
but
training?
I like Marcus. I like Marcus. He and I are very similar in some ways and very different in others. He's very aggressive, and I've met him many times. We do work together on CNBC, and so we run into each other and greet him all the time. I mean, he is a remarkable guy in terms of the work he puts into that show, because that's all field shoots. That's hard work. But he's had some great successes and turnarounds. He's the consummate turnaround guy. His style's a little different than mine, but it doesn't mean he's not successful. I have a lot of respect for what he does. I got to be honest with you. And we're competitive and we have fun together, and I think that's fair. But in a Hunger Games, I'd have different tactics. That's for sure. But I think he is a very worthy component or competitor. I really do.
So training accident, that's your answer.
Before the show starts.
All right, so I've got some listener questions. They were very excited about getting to pose their question to you. So let me just pick one or two here. We can answer them real quick. I also had some people from the show that and that you've also met from Dragon's Den who just wanted to say hello, and they love it, and they're so excited to have been able to interact with you. So I thought that was a lot of fun. Big Dave, Gazelle's Life is the name of his business, said, in the Shark Tank, what business do you consider, Kevin, the one that, quote, got away?
I've been asked that many times, and my answer is always the same. I don't look at it that way. I don't remember deals I didn't participate in. I don't care. I put them out of my mind. There's a million deals in the Naked City, and I know with certainty that another good one's coming through the door in just a couple of weeks. I mean, I see so many deals now. So I don't, often the reason you don't get a deal is karma. You don't want that deal. You'll find out later why. And so I don't think of it that way. I have no regrets on the deals I didn't participate or I didn't win, because I've got so many winners now. And I've had my fair share of losers too, but I just know there's going to be more. I mean, this year I'm bringing more support staff down, because I think I'm going to do a lot more deals. I'm very comfortable with my team now, and I've got a great platform, and I want to find more deals that fit in between. So more consumer goods, more online businesses, more stuff in the wine area, more alcohol-based stuff, and all the things that I know I can really perform on. So I don't care about the past. Nothing got away from me. I mean, it's dead to me.
It sounds like you're planning on having your chair raised up about 6 to 12 inches this year on Shark Tank. Are you getting a booster seat?
Hey, listen, I'm ready to rock. I mean, every year I learn more about what works and what doesn't work on Shark Tank, just like everybody else that's watching it, which is why I'm becoming a lot more savvy in terms of how I structure my deals. As far as I'm concerned, I'm the most creative shark in creating structure. I invented the royalty deal on Shark Tank. Now every shark is copying me. I invented the venture debt deal. Now every shark is copying me. I mean, I feel like I should be sending them an invoice for teaching them something about business.
Yeah. I mean, why go to college when they could just watch you work? I totally agree.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the other sharks. It's an outrage. I mean, if you don't like royalties, why are you proposing it? That's my domain. I love royalty deals.
And that's my next question here. There were a lot of questions about licensing and royalties. And I tell people, look, in real life, you're a franchisee, you pay licensing and royalties. You have a product you sell to a distributor, you pay licensing. Why in Shark Tank? This is Ron McAveen, who says, please explain to us why you value licensing deals more than any of the other sharks. And I want to add to that, it seems like it's contrarian on Shark Tank, so people are against it, but in the real life, that's how it works. So explain your position.
So here's why it works in Shark Tank too. Think about a business, a family business like Wicked Good Cupcakes, the first royalty deal ever done on Shark Tank. That's a family business owned by Danny and Tracy. 100% to the two of them, mother-daughter. They have a special bond. You don't want to go in there with a 10 or 20% ownership. There's no value in owning equity there at all. You'll never have liquidity in that value because it's supporting a family. They've got an extended family. It should stay that way until it gets to 10 or 20 million in sales. So the best way to participate is right off the top with a royalty. Then our interests are aligned. Every day I try and figure out how can I sell an incremental cupcake? What can I do to increase sales? Because it's in my best interest and theirs. That is perfect alignment. And so when people criticize a royalty deal, they just have to talk to Tracy and Danny to realize how incredibly successful it's been. They control their company, they've maintained their equity, and they've got a partner that's myopically focused on growing revenue. That's perfect. That's why royalty deals work. When you have a structure in a small business format that's owned by a family where blood is thicker than anything else, you don't want any equity in that. You just want to find a way that you can be incredibly helpful and partner with them and that makes money for you. And the royalty deal is the right way to do that. So that's why that structure works in that case. It's not for every deal, but I look at every deal differently and say, what's the best structure? I'm very creative that way and say, what can I do that matches and puts us in maximum alignment together? I don't listen to all the rest of the sharks with their, I'll give you 20%. I'll get 20% for 200,000. Who cares about that? You got to align your interests. And sometimes I buy equity if it makes sense.
Last question from a listener. And I think this is pertinent because anytime you've had the amount of success you've had, you always, what if there's a wipeout risk? What if you had to hit the reset button? So this question is from Julie Gouillard. She runs Design at Distance, and she's from Montreal, a place that you apparently know a lot about. Hi, here's my question for Kevin, smiley face. If he only had a small budget to start building brand awareness for a startup, where and what would he spend the first $10,000 on?
I wouldn't spend $10,000. I would get it all free in social media like so many others have done.
Bam.
Very, very well. I would just I'd open up a Twitter, an Instagram, Facebook account like everybody else. And lately, the one that's really proven to be powerful for me is LinkedIn. And so we spend a lot of time and energy focusing on getting our data about our businesses out on all those platforms simultaneously. And it has really brought our customer acquisition costs down. I say I've reduced in my companies over the last year the cost of customer acquisitions by 30% by getting a masterful use out of our platforms. So I look at my platforms today, Huffington Post, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And I spend a lot of time of every day reviewing the content that we're putting into those platforms, supporting all of our businesses. And this is something that every entrepreneur in today's world should be using, because if you're good at it and you can differentiate yourself, you can actually reduce your customer acquisition costs dramatically. It's the difference between making money and losing it.
I asked that intentionally because I always am curious when people say, when they're concerned about how to spend their last dollar or last $5,000 or $10,000. I think that's kind of the wrong approach, in my opinion. I'd be doing as much as I can for free without spending $1 if I can help it, because so much of
that's the nature of a startup. That's what you should be doing. You shouldn't be wasting money. You should have zero burn rate if you can afford it. You shouldn't pay yourself anything. You just should live off cereal and carbos until you get some revenue, you know?
All right, so I want to do a quick Shark Tank round. I know we're running out of time here. So to give people a little bit of a teaser behind the scenes, I want to ask you a couple quick lightning round questions about being on Shark Tank. First thing I want to ask is, who is most likely to cry during a shoot?
Definitely Robert. Robert is always crying. He's crying about 110% of the time.
Who is most likely to have their phone go off during a live taping?
Barbara.
Who most often shows up late?
That's a good one. I would say Cuban.
Who is most likely to go Christian Bale on an intern or an extra on set? If you heard about that.
That's gotta. Yeah, no, I did. I think, I can't say we have that problem on Shark Tank. I've never seen any shark, because our set has 120 people on it. You wouldn't get away with that. It would be a very bad outcome. So none of them, they wouldn't do it. It's just because, we have Sony, ABC, and Mark Burnett executives there. We're a city when we're shooting. We got a city. It's just no opportunity to do something like that. And you'd be an asshole if you did that anyways.
Tell something about Mark Burnett that most people don't know. We don't hear his name very often. I know Clay, I've been told Clay kind of runs everything behind the scenes. But Mark Burnett, to me, is a fascinating individual. You look at just win after win after win, doing things in Hollywood that other people aren't doing, and now he's being copied. The very strong Christian message he's been successful with. Tell us a little bit about your relationship with Mark.
What I've learned in working with him over the years, and I spent a lot of time in the first year with him, is he understands the value of a story. The whole reason these shows work in all these multiple formats is they tell a story. And, the story told in Shark Tank is the pursuit of freedom. And it's born over and over and over again in unique and different ways. And he understands that. And so he's myopically focused on keeping that intact no matter how you change the format. And he's a major advocate for his way of doing it. And so it's very hard when Mark decides to put a certain format in place. It's very hard to fault him, because what studio executive from any network would, challenge his decision on that? And so with that power that he wields, particularly in television, he can create complex reality shows like Shark Tank and keep them as he really is ultimately steering the ship with that. And nobody second guesses him. The cast doesn't, the showrunners don't, and the studio executives don't, because he has the one thing they need: success. And he does it over and over and over again. So he's got consistency, longevity, and success. And that's incredible power in Hollywood.
Other than Shark Tank, what's your second TV show in the queue on Netflix, Hulu, DVR, etc.?
Right now, I would have to say Downton Abbey, that I'm just totally enamored with. And after that, it would be House of Cards. And I don't really have much more time than to watch my own show, and those two. And of course I participate. I watch early morning business television from London, England, and CNBC out of New York, because I run a mutual fund business. So I need to have that information every day. That's my real job. I've got almost $1 billion under management, so I worry about that a lot.
Right. And most people say, I'm way too busy to watch TV, but everyone has their guilty pleasure. Everyone watches something, right? So it's good to know.
Definitely.
You have hundreds of thousands of songs in your library.
Go ahead.
You're a music aficionado. If you had to go to a desert island, which one would you take?
Of songs or albums, you mean?
Either one. Something you could listen to over and over.
I would take Asia by Steely Dan.
Excellent. What book do you gift most often?
I gift O'Leary wine most often. I've sent bottles of my wine all across the country lately, and people are just raving about it, particularly my Chardonnay. There's nothing like it. I mean, it's a perfect. I've gone to a French Montrachet style that people have forgotten about, and when they taste it, they just are blown away. You
went on TMZ recently and said nothing. You understand, as a Kevin superfan, this was incredibly frustrating and disappointing to me. Why did they not get a one-liner on a show focused around celebrity one-liners from Kevin O'Leary?
I've done a lot of stuff on TMZ, but, I think they're a very interesting format, and I think they provide a service because it's very real. What people should realize now, and TMZ is a good example of it, you're on television 24/7. You're the best character to be on TV, if you're a shark or in any other reality show, is to be yourself. Because if you are a strikingly different person on TMZ than you are in your show, you're going to get called out for it. That's for sure.
Kevin, I really want to thank you for your time. I'm really excited about Beyond the Tank and season 7 and the fact that the show is still in the ascendancy. People ask me, well, what are you going to do when the show ends? And I go, well, it's not anywhere in the near future, so what do I care? They're doing fantastic, and I think you're the nexus and part of the main reason that that's possible. I think people are finally starting to warm up to Team Wonderful and your strategy and approach, finally. But this wouldn't be a Shark Tank podcast if I didn't do what I always do, and that's my WWKD moment. What would Kevin do? All right. So
here's what Mr. Wonderful says.
Thank goodness I'm here. I have to ask you the Kevin question. There is a lot of criticism out there for yourself and Mark because the deals that made you a billionaire, the one deal that made you a billionaire was seen in the market as a bad deal. How do you respond to that criticism?
There's always critics about every deal all of the time. If you do something big and remarkable, you are going to be criticized. It's all noise. Take care of your customers and your shareholders, and you will always move forward. The rest is irrelevant.
If there were 1 million Shark Tank fans listening to this is my last question, and they said, you know what, Kevin, what's the number one thing we could do to impress you as an investor or as a partner and to make ourselves successful? What's the one piece of advice you would give them?
Show me you have what it takes to be an entrepreneur and understand there's no balance in life during the period you're trying to be successful. Admit that to yourself, admit it to me, and I'll back you till the cows come home.
Thank you so much for making this a wonderful hour, Mr. Wonderful. We're excited to see what comes in the future, and thanks for jumping into the Shark Tank podcast.
Take care. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you for jumping in to the Shark Tank podcast. Please subscribe to the show on iTunes and head over to sharktankpodcast.net to get the show notes from each episode and join the free Shark Tank Insiders list. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook at Shark Tank Podcast and on Twitter at Shark Tank PDcast.